Hi guys, I'm a forester here. Prepping was a big deal back during the Great Recession here in the U.S., but you don't really hear that much about it anymore. At least I don't. People seem to have jobs and things are rolling along pretty smoothly. But in China, the epidemic is making preppers out of a lot of their residents who are locked in their apartments for days on end. And one such prepper is my daughter, who lives in Hangzhou, China, with her husband and 2 young children. I'm going to contact her in just a minute, so stay tuned. But first, I want to go over some statistics, and I updated these statistics as of this morning. 35,000 people have been confirmed with the illness so far, and that number is increasing by roughly 3,000 per day, and that 3,000 is an average over the past week. Now, it's spread globally, and up to 24 countries have confirmed cases. But this is a key point: 70% of all the confirmed cases are in the Hubei province of China. And mortality is also highest in that province, where 97% of deaths have taken place. Now, Carrie, my daughter, lives in Hangzhou, China. It's a city of 10 million people, and it's roughly 470 miles from the epicenter of this epidemic. The local statistics are these: 162 confirmed cases are in Hangzhou, China. 7 confirmed cases are in her local district, and there have been 0 deaths reported in Hangzhou, China. Now let me get Carrie on WeChat. I'm just going to do a voice chat with her, and let's get her take on the epidemic. I hope that you'll be able to hear this. Hello?
Hello?
Hey Carrie, how you doing?
Hi.
Well,
Pretty good. How are you?
All right. I'm recording this live on the video, and so I just wanted to ask you, we wanted to get your take on what life is like in Hangzhou, China right now. How's things different?
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting over the last couple of weeks. A lot of things have been closed. It's during the spring festival, so everything's normally closed, but it's definitely been more closed than usual, and there have been some recent new laws that have just come into effect this week, so it's been an adventure.
Well, we'll get into that a little bit later, but a couple of weeks ago you said you described the situation as an apocalypse. What did you mean by that?
Well, a couple of things, though. Actually, I was talking to my husband about that. He commented actually post-apocalyptic's probably a better word, because there's just nobody on the streets. All the buildings are closed. So it's probably more post-apocalyptic fallout than apocalyptic. But yeah, one of the big things that I've noticed is, particularly I was commenting on it in relation to the grocery stores, because there was just this huge run on food, and typically Chinese families, they only buy enough food to last one day. They cook fresh, and so I'm normally the only person in the store who's loading up a week's worth of groceries into a shopping cart. And so it was just especially unusual to walk in there and see these people with, a week or 2 weeks worth of groceries piled into a shopping cart, when I'm used to being the only person in there who does that.
Yeah. Well, are things getting any better, worse, or staying about the same?
In some ways better, in some ways more challenging. We've had some lockdowns come up recently. So the good news is they have gotten the grocery situation stabilized. For about 2 days, we were really struggling because, like I say, everyone suddenly loaded up on groceries, but supply and demand balanced out pretty quickly, and so now that's no longer an issue. There's been no food shortages at the stores, so that's been really good. But yeah, like I say, they've implemented some new policies and strategies for dealing with it, so that's been an adjustment.
Well, you talked about the lockdown mode a good bit, and I guess it's in full force right now, but describe that, and how's it being controlled?
Yeah, so there's actually not very many cities that have implemented this, but I suspected it would come to us probably about a week ago when I first heard the announcement down in Hangzhou. which is a couple hours from here. And so anyway, Hangzhou followed the same policies that Wenzhou had, which is that from each household, only one person may be registered to be allowed to leave the apartment complex, and we can only leave every 2 to 3 days. So I went down yesterday, actually. It went into effect the day before yesterday, and I needed to go shopping yesterday. So I went down, I registered. They gave me this little red kind of booklet, and so it has my name and my address and phone number. And then when I exit, I show that I have it on me. When I come back in, they write the date. And then so anytime I want to go out, they'll double check. And if it hasn't been at least 2 days, then we're not permitted to go out. So I'm the only person in my whole household currently who can leave the apartment complex.
How are you able to work if you can only get out every 2 days?
They've been really good with that, actually. Our school, my university that I teach at, officially we have no idea when the start of school will be. They've said definitely not before the end of February for live in-person work, but they have an excellent online system that was already in place. If anyone's familiar with MOOCs, it's the massive online courses. And so my university has its own MOOC website, and it's set up. And so I've actually already started uploading some of my course materials, and so we'll actually begin classes with only a 1-week delay. We'll begin February 24th, and we'll start doing it through the online systems. So I think that's going to be really good. And some of my other side income was already through the internet and the phone, so it hasn't affected that at all. So it's been really good. I did read an interesting article, though, that originally so many people telecommuting like this actually crashed the servers of a very popular app called DingTalk, but they got it under control right away, and so now it's got really good business networking capabilities. So it's been definitely growing in popularity, which I think is great for the app, because it's been really, really useful for us.
Well, I want to move on to prepping, since that's the title of this video. But you made a comment a while back that this was going to make a prepper out of you. How are you becoming a prepper?
Well, it's interesting. Now, I will say, for your audience, I shy away a little bit from the term prepper, because it has some connotations in my mind of, the end of the world sort of mentality. I prefer homesteader, actually, for myself, but I've been really glad since this happened that I was already getting into some of these homesteading things. And it grew out of necessity over here, just simply because there are a lot of foods that, just don't exist here, particularly if it's something that's canned. Chinese people, again, they tend to buy fresh, and so it's very difficult sometimes to find ingredients for recipes. So I actually got into it mostly just because I wanted to have the things that I was used to finding in America, and the only way was to DIY, to home can, to do these things. And it's been great, because as soon as we heard the lockdown was coming into effect, the first thing I did, I opened the freezer, I checked how many bags we had set up for the sous vide machine, and I also opened up the little pantry we have, and went through and checked how many cans of vegetables I already had ready. So it was really, really useful that I was already into this before this happened, and it's just made life so much easier to not have to worry about running out to the store every day or anything. And the other thing too is I'm really big into sewing, and so as it's become a little more difficult sometimes to find masks, I'm actually planning this week to make some that will have washable filters in them, so that we won't have to worry about hunting down a pharmacy that still has good masks in stock.
Can you find masks in stock at stores right now?
So I found some for delivery. There's a supermarket that's doing delivery, and they actually had some in stock, but they are a lot more expensive than the ones we had bought at the pharmacy, even though the exact same style. So I was surprised by that, but generally ordering is more expensive. but we've checked several pharmacies in person recently, and they have been sold out locally. So I know we could get them by order, but it is a challenge currently to find any in person.
Are there some essential services, like I know you use a water supply service where they bring, you know, containers of water. Are those still available?
I think it depends on your company. I haven't asked my friend. She uses a different company, and they might still be operational because they had a different system and could book it through an app on their phone. But for our company, they are shut down. So I ordered, you know, normally at a time we order one large 19-liter jug, and so I've had to switch to the little 4 liters. But again, there's a supermarket that's running delivery, so I had them deliver a case of 4 of those 4-liter waters. And then we also have, you know, the Berkey that you gave us. So I guess, you know, worst case, if anything ever just went totally crazy with the water situation, we'd still have that. But so far, that hasn't been an issue.
Okay, I want to ask you one last question, really, and it's because I know people are going to comment. Why don't you get the heck out of China and come on back home? Can you if you wanted to?
Well, it would certainly be a challenge. Well, firstly, I'll address the first question. I probably would not ever choose to. I mean, it would have to get a lot worse before I would consider it. You know, this has been our home for 6 years, and it's not the sort of thing where we'd want to try to have to run overseas for, you know, a month or 2 or whatever happens. It's just more comfortable to stay at home, honestly. But if we wanted to, the main challenge, well, there's a couple of things. One, all of the U.S. airlines kind of simultaneously decided to shut down services to and from China, which is, I'd say, being a little bit overly cautious in my opinion, but that's their decision. And so the only options for getting out are to book flights that go through neighboring countries. So, for example, the flights that I've seen are for, you know, going from here to Korea and then on to America, or from here to Japan and on to America. So getting the flights is not too problematic. The biggest problem, though, is our transportation systems are shut down. They banned buses, taxis, ride-sharing apps, and the subways. Though the subways, it's a little unclear whether some of them are operational, but there's not one to the airport, so that's irrelevant anyway. So I think the hardest part, if we ever wanted to leave, would be figuring out how to get to the airport. But the good news is we have a number of friends here. You know, we've lived here for so long that we certainly have friends who have vehicles. So I'm sure I could phone in a favor if it was absolutely necessary. But yeah, it would be a challenge with public transit being currently closed.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Now it's what time is it there? 9 o'clock Saturday evening, and it's 8.
Yeah, it's just a little after 9.
It's around 8 a.m. Saturday morning here. But I know there's going to be questions. It's hard to cover everything in an interview like this, and so just stay on the line. I'm going to close the video, and I just want to let everybody know, if you have questions, I hope you found it interesting, and if you do have questions, just post them in the comment below. Now, YouTube is banned over in China, but I'll post answers to the questions that you ask. I'll get that from my daughter. All right, I hope you found it interesting, and y'all take care.